Well, hey, everybody, this is Kim Stevens, your community leader for the Women of the Channel Leadership Network. Welcome to another WOW session. Joining me today is Alyssa Fitzpatrick, who is a VP and GM of Global Partner Sales at Intel. She's got a big job, y'all. Alyssa, thanks for joining me.
Thank you. Great to be here.
What is maybe a little known fact that not many people know about you?
Well, I think, so many of us in in professional careers grew up in sports because that's just something, and we're competitive spirits and we love being a part of a team. And, that's the same for me. I love sports of all kinds. I like spectator sports. I like participating in sports. I'm pretty partial to water and snow. But I also have an affinity for adrenaline sports. I really love the sports that test your limits, jumping out of airplanes, jumping off of bridges. I do a lot of, deep sea scuba diving, kind of from the tops of the world to the bottom of the world. I love testing myself and kind of scaring myself. I think that if you really throw yourself into a situation that you're scared and you're out of your comfort zone, that's when you grow. And that's when you really see what you're made of. And so that's something that I've held as a tenet in my life. I constantly seek those opportunities for those adrenaline rushes. And I've woven that through my children as well. With my 3 teenagers, last year, my son turned 16. And as part of his birthday, we decided we would go base jumping together. So my son and we jumped off of a bridge in Idaho, and it was a blast. And so seeding that in my kids, that desire to do that physical, put myself out of my comfort zone. I'm hoping, it trains them that is something that you do in your life, whether it's physical or your mental. We're always testing ourselves mentally. And if we're not, then we're getting stagnant. And so I think it's a really important lesson to learn in life and to keep true to as you go through. Always test yourself.
Not that you're jumping off a bridge, but I'm sure you've taken some chances along the way and challenged yourself and got out of your comfort zone. So obviously you have a big job at Intel. But how, maybe just give us, some highlights of how you got to where you are now.
Landing in the partner world, I don't know that that's ever anyone's intention. You just kind of evolve into it. And I got my degree in computer science from University of Washington 30 years ago. And, I expected to be a coder for my life. I got my degree in finance as well as computer science. I ended up double majoring in engineering and business. And coming out of school, I landed at Andersen Consulting and I started coding. And, kind of went through the whole process of coding in various languages. And what happened really that changed my career was one of my first gigs. I think it was my third role at Andersen. They sent me out to Menlo Park in California and asked me to code C++ with this really small software company. And there were 12 people in the company. And I started coding C++, and I would meet with the CEO for an hour every month and kind of say what's happening, where are we going with the company. And fast forward about 8 or 9 months, I had not only been able to really code the heart of the product, but we had also navigated a $10 million investment from Andersen into this small company. And that was the start, really, to me, the birth of partnering. And it was Andersen investing in a company called Siebel Systems. And so we built Siebel University. I actually built Siebel University to train 500 Andersen consultants. And that's when I saw the power of partnering. And so from there, I ended up moving to Oracle, and I managed the Oracle and Sun Microsystems relationship globally as the technical leader. And that was when I realized, okay, I've now got a few years under my belt with Andersen Consulting and coding and kind of learning what partnering can really do. Now I'm sitting in a partner role, but I've got a global title, and I've only lived in Boulder, Colorado, and San Francisco. And so this is when I went to Oracle and said, I really want to experience more. And so I actually was able to exit Oracle US, join Oracle UK, and move to Europe for 3 years. Wow. And while I was there, I got exposed to a region that I knew nothing about. There were 39 countries in my region in EMEA. Taught me so much. And I brought that back to the US when I came back, really at the turn of the century, when in the 2000s, and I joined a company called Informatica and went through a 10-year journey with them as they went from a $50 million company to 500 million. That was where I got my MBA. I really learned a lot about how a company grows and evolves. And at the time, I was running our SI relationships. From Informatica, I went to McAfee. And that's when I got my security chops and really got to understand what does that security world, what is it all about? How do we deal with our hackers? How are we always on trying to fight the bad guys? But I also got exposed to consumer. I had never worked in a consumer world. I'd always been in an enterprise. So, kind of seeing my journey grow from, starting as a techie, going to Europe, getting a geographic exposure, coming back, learning how to build a company, then diving into security and consumer. My next step was to CA. And that's where I learned mainframe. I really learned what a company that does mergers and acquisitions as its core business. What is that like to bring companies in and take them to market? And so that gave me a different exposure to not only DevOps and mainframe and how we were doing agile development, but it also showed me what it is like to really transition from on-prem to cloud. I was in the middle of that transition of a financial model of what do you do when your billing starts to drop, but your consumption starts to grow, and you're kind of in that I don't know, the valley of despair. And so, so from there, I landed at Microsoft for the last 6 years, where I ran the co-sell motion between partners and the Microsoft sales organization. And then 6 months ago, landed at Intel to bring all of that learning over the last 30 years to Intel, to help Intel bring relevance to the technology in the software and services ecosystem, so that our software partners understand the power of having the right technology underneath, and our services partners can really understand the innovation that we can drive together.
I would love for you to just share, like going back to the early days where you made these changes. Did you do it based on, okay, hey, I need this skill set to get to the next level, so I think this next job will get me those skill sets? Like, what was your mindset to help you make those decisions to get to where you are now? Like, just the thought process, just things for our members to consider, I guess, as they're going in their journey.
Well, there's actually 3 tenets that have ruled my life, and it's actually ruled every decision I've made. And I wouldn't say that I started as young Alyssa with my 3 tenets, but they've evolved over time. And I realized looking back that I've always aligned to those, whether I knew it or not. So the first tenet is say yes. I know a lot of people tell us to say no and learn how to say no, but I'm going to say yes. Say yes to as many things as you can. It gives you color. It gives you exposure. It allows you to jump into situations that you may not expect. But saying yes, when, can you do this? Can you do, yes, yes, yes. It will grow you every time. The second thing is get out of your comfort zone. So you've already heard that from me, but it is so important because it really tells you how you grow and it shows you what you're made of. And getting out of your comfort zone also exposes you to new experiences that you wouldn't normally say yes to. And then the third tenet is do it today. Don't wait. Don't wait till tomorrow. Don't think about when you're going to say yes and when you're going to get out of your comfort zone. Do it now. Practice every day, because when you make that a habit, then it's not this flying leap. It's actually who you are. When I made my career decisions, I did think about, is this the right step? Is this the logical next step? And what am I going to learn from that? I took a very long time to decide whether to come to Intel or not. And it was a very calculated move. I knew exactly what I was getting into. I know that Intel is going to be a very hard journey as we go forward. We've got a lot of work to do. So I knew that going in, but I also knew I'd grow skills. I knew that my skills fit this, but you always need to take a role that is out of your wheelhouse in the sense that it's a step ahead. If you have 80% of the skills to do the job, you're already past that job. You need to be looking for jobs where you have 30 to 50% of the skill set so that you know that you're going to be growing for the next 5 years. So don't look at jobs where you tick every single box. That is not what employers are looking for. They're looking for potential. So you've got to understand where the potential is in you and look for the roles that will exacerbate that ability to expose that.
Are there any other lessons that you know now that, geez, don't you wish you knew when you started out? Does anything other than what we've already talked about come to mind?
There's a huge one. It's one that I wish I knew when I was younger, but I know so well now. Culture wins. Culture wins every single time. You have got to make sure that as you are going through your career journey, you are landing in a cultural fit. If you jump into a company and you like the signs are very early on, ooh, this is not a good cultural fit, get out. It's not going to change. So you've got to pick a company where there's a good culture fit. And so you've got to know your own culture, right? You got to know what you want for culture. And so the reason why I say that is I have sampled a lot of companies. I mean, you look at kind of my history and I've been at, Anderson Consulting or Accenture, a big management consulting, big company like Oracle, very different from Microsoft, very different from CA, small company like Informatica, all different cultures. Some have worked and some haven't. When I'm in a culture that is not congruent with who I am, it is not a good experience. It can be good and you can navigate through it, but it's not settling. You're not at peace when you're in a role in a company where you are not in, the culture doesn't fit you. So when you're interviewing and as you're going through your next job selection, culture should be number one, because you can do a job, you can grow and make changes in the role that you take, but the culture of the company will remain.
How do you apply that? So if you're going through a job interview, is to first be in touch with what's important to you, ask those questions, right? Try to dig in and be a little bit more specific than, hey, what's your culture like at this company, right? Would you say, and then make sure because you're only going to get so much of that answer back. And then there's that moment where, like you said, where it sounded good, but then you got into the job and you're like, oh, this is actually not what I thought it was going to be, right?
Well, I think the important thing there is you can ask those questions, but the interviewers are going to give you the answers that they think you want to hear. And they're going to give you the answers that maybe are like, oh, we've ranked in the top 100 and blah, blah, blah. But it's not the lived culture. The proclaimed culture can be very different than the lived culture. And so you've got to do your own research. You've got to do your due diligence. Actually, before I came to Microsoft, I counter interviewed. And so what I said is the next time I come out to interview, I want a list of women, new leader women that have joined Microsoft in the last year. And I want to interview them for their experience before I take the flying leap to move my whole family from Texas to Washington. Wow. And so they honored that request for me. And I had 6 women that I counter interviewed and I asked them about their experience and what was it like to move to Washington? What was it like to join the culture at a leader level into Microsoft? That was very important to me because I was making a decision for my entire family. And if I was unhappy, I'm now living in Washington, drug my family here. And that, that was an incredibly important decision. And so use your resources, use your LinkedIn network, use the women of the channel, ask about the culture of that company, look at, the data, because when you take that on, you're joining a family, you're putting that brand on and you're embodying that. So you want a culture that you can live in and stand behind and be proud of. And if it's not, then you're not going to be happy. And there's not a lot that you can do to make that happiness ring true if the culture isn't working for you.
This has been chock full of good stuff. Thank you so much, Alyssa, for doing this.
Absolutely. Hey, we're all in this together. We got to help each other out.
We do. We so do. And that's what I love about this community, because we get to do that. We get to talk to amazing people like you. And you know what? If people just walk away with one little nugget of something that will help them, That's awesome. We've
Yeah.
done well. Oh, well, thank you so, so much. And you guys, when you listen to this, please give Alyssa a shout out, give her a like, maybe share how this has helped you in your journey. That's a gift we can give back to her. So thank you for joining, and we will see you guys on the next WOW session. Guys, take care.
Thanks, everyone.